I'll start with kind of telling you guys what I did over the weekend, other than fighting my back pain. So it started on last Friday, and now it's not any better. Anyway, over the weekend I kind of helped out in a it's my consulting job, but I do it mostly for fun. My wife always complains and say that I charge less than a plumber for repairing plumbing work, for the type of consulting work that I do. So you might want to know, but Tech, what kind of consulting work do you do? I mean, well, I helped this gentleman. This is a retiree from UC Davis, and his specialty was originally a machinist. So he's a kind of guy who can make anything out of any material. But when he was working at UC Davis, he was mostly working with aerosol projects. In other words, exposure to particles, exposure to tobacco, exposure to smoke, that sort of projects. And the university needed a machine to basically, dose out smoke particles to petri dish and all kinds of other test apparatus. And he made one for the university, and that's how he started with his quote-unquote smoking machines. And my job, I met him, because he was asking for help, from my previous employer. And my previous employer probably thought that this guy does not have enough volume to really, warrant any help, from the company. So they sent him to me, and that's how, I started to work on his systems. So I can show you, his systems. The one that I work on is this TE10Z. It doesn't really show you what it looks like. Let me see if I can find a picture. Catalog. Okay, so this is the best picture he has, which is actually very, it doesn't look like much. So what this is a electric/pneumatic device. It is both powered by electric. The electricity powered up the carousel, which is connected to a stepper motor. The pneumatic hooked up to the, this is an inserter, is a piston. And there are some other mechanisms, like there's a little magazine loader, like this. It slides out, the cigarette drops in, and then the inserter will push it into the carousel. The carousel will rotate it. There's a little lighter here that will light it up. And there's also a little electric pump that you cannot see in the back that actually simulates it when people puff their cigarettes. Okay, and all that stuff is fed into those animal exposure chambers, petri dish and whatnot, which is not shown in this picture. My only responsibility in this project is this little box here. This is actually the first generation box, which we have not used for many, many years. We are up to the third generation now. The reason why I want to show you is I think there will be more and more job opportunities related to projects like this, simply because the cost of a controller unit is so low now that the hardware is no longer the limitation. Because before, if you want to put in any type of embedded control system, you have to spend $2,000 just on the electronics. But these days, the electronics, if I mass produce it, it will probably cost maybe $30 to $40 each. It's the labor to design it and also the writing the software that is taking the most time. Okay, so the reason why this is related to this class is I think you guys will be able to find more and more job opportunities once you become a competent programmer with projects like these. I mean, it's not really a desktop application program. It is not even an Android app. This is something that is completely hidden inside the machine that is built for a very specific purpose. Okay. Some years ago, I was also approached by a painter, a commercial painter, who wanted to build a painting machine. Okay, so this gentleman, wanted to build a machine to paint commercial buildings. Now, commercial buildings are different from residential buildings because they are very regular in terms of shape. You have one huge wall with very few windows, if any. So he was trying to design something that will rest on top of the building, and the thing would just kind of slide forward like that, and it will have a vertical, kind of like a bridge or a ladder, and it will hold a spray paint head, and it would just go like this. So it would just spray paint the side of a building automatically. But that one did not work out because the guy did not actually have any money. So yeah, I could not even collect the few hours that I spent on the project, but that's okay. It was interesting, to kind of spec out the motors and whatnot, but it did not really pan out. This one, on the other hand, does pan out. I mean, you guys would think, but how many of these things can he sell? I mean, how many universities are out there doing, tobacco product related, projects? Turns out there's enough. Remember, this guy has retired. He wanted to do something like this just to keep himself occupied so he won't bore to death. And as it turns out, he has so much business that now he cannot spend time on stuff that he really wants to work on, like flying. He picked up, flying airplanes and whatnot. So he's now complaining, I don't get to, spend any leisure time on stuff that I really want to spend time on anymore, because now he has to put these things together and he has to install, train people to use it, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this is interesting, and I think the cost of the electronics has made it possible to basically put in a controller into just about anything. So I think you will see more and more of this. So that's the first thing I want to show you. The second thing I want to show would be under the text cool stuff. Most of you probably have received a message about this, about the ARC Dev Club meeting. This is relayed from the president of the ARC Dev Club, and this club is mostly for computer science students, not for engineering students, but mostly computer science. So they have a meeting tomorrow from 1:30 to about 2:30 or so in computer lab. This is room D of room 152. They didn't really say exactly which room. It is room 152. There's a D section of it. And they will be covering upcoming events and projects and listening to suggestions and feedbacks. So hopefully they will make the semester interesting. So I'm not sure how many of you can even make it to that time because it's right in the middle of the day. But these guys are actually pretty good. They are students who are already in their last year here. So they're about to leave, but they want to have a club setting or have a club organization, so that students who have even left ARC can occasionally come back and tell students who are still in ARC, and say, okay, how do you apply to a UC, CSU, or even when you get out, to try to look for a job, what should you do, how should you look for a job, and how you should interview and stuff like that. So we are trying to build a continuity here, everything from cisp300, the beginning class, all the way to 4-year graduation, all the way to getting a job out there in the field. So it's kind of ambitious. We don't know how well it will work out. With student clubs, the big problem has to do with the officers. They have to change because people do graduate. So it depends on whether they can pass on that knowledge to the next generation efficiently. Because a lot of times when they cannot pass on that knowledge to the next generation, then everybody has to start over again every 2 years, and that's not exactly helpful. So I do encourage you guys, if you are interested, to attend the meeting, just to find out what it is, just to find out who these people are and what kind of stuff they have planned, to do. I think they have, everything from web projects, HTML authoring, all the way to embedded systems. So there should be a good variety of stuff for you guys to do. Any questions about the ARC Dev Club? Yep.
So is it only on Tuesdays from 1:30 to?
That's the meeting. That's the meeting time. But it doesn't mean that you cannot contact them, other than by email. I mean, these guys are all pretty, email savvy.
Okay.
So you can contact them by email, and I think they're in the process of making a flyer, so that will contain the email information, websites, and whatnot.
Okay.
Yep. They only got the club started about a month before the semester ended last semester, so they didn't have a whole lot of time to get things organized at the time. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions about this? No? Okay. All right, so if there are no questions, what I will do is I will just kind of go back and review the material that will be in the practice test. The idea is for you guys to practice or to study before the practice test, even though it's only a practice test, because that way you can sort of kind of gauge, how much you know about the subject area, and so that will help you, prepare for the actual exam. Before we go any further, let me make sure that I reserve that time slot. I'm not sure whether we can do this in the lab, because this class is still kind of big, and the lab does not have a whole lot of open sections at this time. But I still reserve the time slot just to remind people that we will have an exam next Wednesday. So that's what we'll do right now. So I'm just adding a quiz activity on Moodle, which is going to be blank for now. So this is going to be cisp300, Monday, Wednesday, exam 2. Oh, sorry. Time warp. And we're going to do this part. That will be the 29th, right? Next Wednesday is going to be the 29th? I think so. So it's going to be the 29th. And the time is going to be from 5:30 to the end. We'll take the entire class period. So we'll go to 6:50. And this is all I will enter at this point. There will be no questions for now, but you will see, if you look under upcoming events, it shows up already. So in other words, it's just a reminder at this point. There are no questions associated with the quote-unquote exam at this point. I will check with the lab, because I hope we can actually do it at the lab, but I'm not sure whether they will have enough computers in the lab for this class. This is kind of like a big class. So check with the lab first. If I cannot arrange to take the exam at the lab, it would just be on paper. I'll just hand out paper, and you don't need a Scantron. You just kind of circle the answer or write on the exam paper itself. Okay, so there's no Scantron needed. Okay, any questions at this point? Any specific topic? Yes?
Yeah, is the test going to be all multiple choice, or are we going to have to trace stuff?
There will be traces. Yep. So it's going to be a combination of filling the blanks, some calculations, and there may be some multiple choice questions too. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? By Wednesday, we'll know for sure, because the practice test will contain the same type of questions as the actual exam. Okay. Any questions? Yep.
Are you going to go to last Wednesday's discussion? Was it recorded?
Say that again?
Last Wednesday's discussion.
Last Wednesday, it was recorded, but I think I remember. I used the wrong extension. So the software recorded, but it was in a format, or the code that it selected was really kind of crappy. So the recording is really fuzzy. I can still post it. You can still listen to the audio part. The audio part is still good. Yep.
This practice exam we're taking here?
Well, the practice exam is just a regular lecture.
Oh.
In other words, I'm going to show the questions on the whiteboard and explain how I would answer a question like that.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Will we, after the practice exam, will we get to take our copy to study off of, or do you collect them?
Oh no, I do not collect anything. The practice exam is nothing more than popping the questions on the screen, and you guys can work on it at the same time, before or after the class. So the questions they're all yours.
Okay.
Yep. The answer depends on whether you're going to write it down, and depends on how much I can capture on that day. Yep. But there's nothing I'm going to hide. There's no material I will hide. Before the actual exam. Yep.
Will you post it online?
Yes. Yep. It will be online. I cannot guarantee how much before the Wednesday class I can post it. Because it's going to be tight. But after that, it will remain online for the rest of the semester. Now, remember, the point of these exams is not to test whether you guys can remember, all the stuff. It's to see whether you can apply the stuff that you have learned so far. So that is the key. Let us go back, since no one has any. Well, does anyone have any specific topic that